Seeing panoramic sight for completion, that's 360. G.O. dark melanin, no ex-resident, no traffic in my lane, swerve free, foot to pedaling, soul controller, body snatcher for some, I do this for fun, not even for the funds, could be that love, shoulder shrug, spaz out, mask out, comb the beard out, tonight's a night for heist, jewel grab his pockets full of 12.
Hello, and welcome to the Heart of a Villain, now on YouTube live streaming on YouTube. How is everybody doing tonight? Anybody that is not out here on YouTube is going to be able to listen to this podcast in its normal form later at another time, probably be out sometime later this evening. So again, this is BP from the Bearded Villains of Indiana and also the host of the Heart of a Villain. So hello and welcome to everybody who has been here before. To those of you who have been here before or are new, welcome again. I'm just going to start for the purposes of my actual recorded podcast and start out with the original beginning. Hello and welcome to episode 25 of The Heart of a Villain, the podcast devoted to the Bearded Villains Worldwide Brotherhood and the lives they are changing all over the world. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. You are either watching, again, like I said, on YouTube or listening to the podcast on one of the major podcast platforms. So thank you very much for being here. If this is your first time finding the podcast, welcome. You have found, in my opinion, what is the best podcast around if you like the bearded villains, bearded men, charity, and brotherhood. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are required with the social distancing aspect. We're starting to feel more separated with the world, I think. But as I've said before, one thing that we can do as villains during our time is lift ourselves, lift our family, and lift our friends up in this matter. So please do so. Please watch out for your family and your friends. By the way, there are 24 other episodes now. Since we are on episode 25, I did the math, and that means there's 24 other episodes that you can listen to and catch up with during this pandemic when you're staying at home. In case you have missed any of them, please remember that I have interviewed members from, BV brothers from as far away as Kentucky, BV Virginia, Miami, Columbia, Tennessee, Phoenix, New Mexico, West Australia, Philadelphia, Ontario, Southeast, Puerto Rico, Idaho, Mississippi, Chicago, Smoky Mountain, England, Sweden, Swampside, and LA, just to name a few. So please get over there, subscribe to the channel, like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you have a question about where we're talking about, you can go over to The Heart of a Villain at simplecast.com. That's theheartofavillain.simplecast.com, and that's where you can find all of the previous recordings of The Heart of a Villain. You can also find merchandise on there. I won't get into that right now, but there is a store link there as well, and you can find all you need to know about shirts, patches, pins, and all that great information there. So please check out that link. Again, this is BP from The Heart of a Villain. I want to let you know that as number 25 in this game, I think that by all intents and purposes, we've actually beaten the odds of the startup podcast thing. A lot of people stick around for 5 or 10 episodes, but we've stuck it out through 25 so far. But you know what? There are so many other brothers to talk to, so many other stories to tell, so many other charities to talk to, and I'm going to be here for it all. And the Heart of a Villain is going to be your resource for learning all about those stories, the bearded villains, and the lives that we touch. So I'm going to be here, and I hope you will be too. The reach of this podcast is growing every single day. And speaking of growth, don't forget this YouTube channel where you're at right now, unless you're listening on the normal ways. If you haven't been there yet, it's a channel that's connected to the podcast that lets me put on videos, sneak previews of different events that we do, sneak previews of podcast guests. And what I'm going to do from this, I have 2 podcast guests tonight, and from this I'm going to have sneak peeks of those for the people that are not on the live right now. So you can check out what we do, the little video clips and everything else. Real quick before I forget, I do appreciate everybody making comments that they're sending in right now. That's really awesome. I am going to acknowledge them as I go if I can, but I want to try and work in the workflow here, so I want to make sure that I'm doing okay and I've got a couple guests that are going to be coming on, and I don't want to delay them. So I will be recognizing and pulling up some of those comments that are coming in. So I do appreciate it for everything that you've said and you continue to say so far. So again, please reach out, search for The Heart of a Villain if you are listening to this on the regular podcast, or go to the youtube.com/C/The Heart of a Villain so you can find all this additional video content information. I also need to give a quick shout out to all of you who have joined in for the IG Live for no good reason over the last we did it 3 times this week. And one night we did it twice. So I do appreciate all of you guys for chiming in, being there, being loyal listeners for that. Gives us a chance to sit back, relax, and just talk about life, talk about things that are BV related or just life related. And we get into some fun conversations there. So that's IG Live. Usually happens 2 or 3 times a week. So keep track of the Instagram page for The Heart of a Villain for those updates. So just keep an eye on that stuff. Also, I mentioned this in the last podcast, but with all that's going on, the Blackshire Villains wanted to let us know that they're trying to add a little fun into the current situation where everybody has to stay at home. And to that end, they're trying to set a goal to find the youngest and the oldest patched villains in the world. Now, that's a pretty hefty goal, but they're trying for it. So the youngest and oldest patched villains in the world, and they're calling it the Shepherd and the Lamb. They're asking for, get this, they want every chapter to reach out to them and tell them who their youngest and their oldest patched villain are. And they want you to do this by April 12th, which is Easter Sunday. So keep an eye on that. But the 2 patched brothers that are deemed to be the youngest and the oldest worldwide are going to receive each one of them is going to receive a limited edition. And I believe there's only 2 of these that were made. A limited edition hat. It's a snapback hat, and it has the shepherd and the lamb on the back of it, on the front of it. So very limited, only 2, I believe, made. The youngest will get one, the oldest will get one. So get out there and herd up your youngest and your oldest, and send that information over to the Blackshire Villains, because this is kind of a cool idea that they're doing. I have 2 really great brothers as guests today. Both have some words that we really need to hear about how they personally have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic going on right now and all of our stay-at-home orders. One brother is working out in the conditions, and another brother, a brother of mine from here in Indiana, who, unbeknownst to a lot of people, he was actually contracted the coronavirus. So he's going to tell us his story as well. But first, I want to get to Ryan, otherwise known as Hallmark, from Bearded Villains of Montreal, who earlier this week, he posted a video online on Instagram, and it was a really cool video. And I think that it kind of took a little bit of guts for him to get out there and put this video together. But he's kind of telling you from his perspective, and from not only his perspective, but from the perspective of really a great many people in his profession, and several of them worldwide are bearded villains. But there are people all over the world in his profession that are facing the same issues that he is. So real quick, I want to show you this video if you're watching online. If you're not watching online, just bear with me. You're going to get the audio on the podcast. So here's Ryan, and we're going to bring him in for an interview after this video.
Morning, everybody. How you doing today? So, as you can see, I've got my travel toilet that I've had to pick up since this entire virus outbreak has started. As you can see, I do give a shit. The reason why I'm out here and doing this video is because the message isn't getting out. Stay home. Practice social distancing. This is what your essential drivers is being resorted to now, because governments and private business owners are now shutting their doors, even though they are classified as essentials, because they want to do their part in making sure that they're not giving a place for people to gather, a place for people to leave their homes. There are truck stops, there are service centers that I am being greeted by a big, huge light up billboard travel sign saying, service center closed, practice social distancing, stay home. I can't. I got to serve my country. I got to make sure you get your essentials. It's getting increasingly more and more difficult for us to find food, for us to find clean showers, for us to find clean facilities. It's getting more and more difficult for us to find places that are not shut down so we can park for the day or night. Watching this video, I hope that this is an image that is not so nice and pleasant, that will burn into your mind, and understand that your essential workers need you to stay home. We need you to practice social distancing, and it's not just so that I have a clean facility to use. It is so that we can get rid of this virus and continue on with our lives. Thank you so much for watching this. Please, this is a video that I would like to see just being posted and reposted and shared. I want this image to be shared so that people understand the severity of the fact that your essential drivers are now experiencing even more issues of it being able to safely get your essential goods, medical supplies, food, toilet paper, just your essentials to you, because things are being shut down. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you so much for paying attention to your situations and staying home and practicing social distancing if you are. I from the bottom of my heart, I am just so grateful that you're doing these things. Thank you, folks. I love you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home unless you're an essential, and practice social distancing if you have to go out. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
Again, everybody, that was Ryan. We call him Hallmark. He's from the Bearded Villains Montreal. He is a villain. He's a truck driver, and more importantly now, he's been listed as an essential driver, but I don't want to diminish what he does year-round, because I think that's a little bit of what it does. But he is a truck driver and now an essential driver, but he's very important year-round. On IG, he goes by, well, we're just going to let him tell you, because the IG handle that we had was wrong. So Ryan from Bearded Villains Montreal, otherwise known as Hallmark, here he is. I'm going to bring him in and welcome. How you doing today, buddy?
Good. Yourself?
Oh, I'm doing really well. I'm going to try and bring you in here and get you on this video. Here we go. There we are. All right. So how you doing?
Good. Great. Thank you. Thanks, Brian, for taking me on the podcast and the live YouTube show.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure, man. I really liked the video that you put together earlier this week, and I think it pointed out some obvious issues, but we're going to get to that in just a minute. I want to get to a little bit of other stuff just to let the audience here know a little bit about you, who you are. So if you can, I know that we've talked at length a little bit about your experiences, about your BV journey, but people don't really know who you are. Well, some people might not. So you're from BV, you're BV Montreal, but you didn't originally start there. So can you take us through, those of us who don't know you, your BV journey, how you found the Bearded Villains, and how it's led you to where you are right now today?
Sure. So I originally started with BV, Bearded Villains, in March of last year. We have a brother, Chris Cherry, aka Kool-Aid. It's been a very long time friend of ours. He actually introduced me to my wife years and years and years ago, and I watched him change as he was start doing his journey in Bearded Villains. So I asked him about it, and at that time, though, we were living out in Nova Scotia, Canada. So he put me into contact with Bearded Villains Maritimes, and I started my journey back in last March. Fast forward, I was with them. I got my villain in July, yeah. And then I switched over to Bearded Villains Montreal a few months ago. As far as my journey goes, it's been fantastic. As you've already said, I'm on the road. I travel, so I've been all over the United States and Canada, and I've been able to meet up with different chapters. Like go down to Texas. I met up with the Houston chapter. Go through Ontario, meet up with Toronto, Ontario Southwest. That's actually how I actually met the Montreal chapter, was because I was always going through Montreal. So it's been an incredible experience. I've met incredible people, and the best part of it is that it's a bunch of people that just want to do good things. that's all they aspire for.
Yeah.
And you don't find that very often, where everyone's encouraged to do good things, and when you do something good, it definitely is rewarded by, we get to see the faces of people that we're doing the charities for, and then also the encouragement just from our other brothers and other chapters for what we've done, right? We're making a difference in this world, which is fantastic.
Yeah, very well said. So you've been, you didn't start out there. You're now in Montreal, and you said you've been with Montreal now for how long?
A few months now with Montreal.
Okay.
So,
all right. So as a truck driver, I know you are actually, and many of you may not be able to tell this, he's actually in his truck right now, and it's pretty cool. I just told him earlier before we connected, before the podcast started, and it's pretty amazing how much room he has there. I'm sure it looks like much more room than you actually have. But he's made this thing out to look like a studio that looks almost nicer than mine. So he's got for those of you not looking, he's got the flag, he's got a shirt, he's got some what he calls his essentials behind him. We'll let him tell you about that for the YouTube broadcast people here in a second. But as a truck driver, you've already had a very interesting work schedule, being in this line of work, regardless, not including the pandemic situation. But how has your previous work experience, your work schedule per se, changed now since the COVID-19 pandemic has done all this stay-at-home things for everybody? How has your actual workflow, your work schedule changed?
So Brian, what I used to do for Dan Ross, that's the company that I drive for, was I was a scheduled driver. I left every Sunday evening, like midnight Sunday night. I drive down to Connecticut, drive over to Toronto, and then back home. It was a 3 to 4 day trip, and then I'd be home for 3 to 4 days. Really easy run, same customers, same locations, same traffic patterns that you're used to. You know what time to leave, you know what lane to be in. So you're very familiarized with that. Since this pandemic that's happened, I talked it over with my wife, and I decided that I needed to stay out. So I contacted Dan Ross and I said, well, I got a truck, we got a trailer. I'll stay out on the road until things get, because we're running out of supplies. Canadians and Americans are running out of supplies. And the issue is that we also don't have enough truck drivers to begin with. There was already a shortage. And then the other issue is that a big portion of the current truck drivers that we do have are older men and women.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're not going out on the road as much now because they're afraid to contract the virus. Well, rightfully so, right?
Sure.
So my wife and I decided that I would stay out. So I'm going to be staying out for 3 months at a time now, instead of 3 days, 4 days at a time, which has dramatically changed because I'm no longer doing the same scheduled delivery. I'm going all over the place. So I've been down into Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, drove through Chicago. I've driven all the way up to Wisconsin. I was just down in Georgia. Now I'm running over to North Carolina. Wow. And then back up to Toronto. So that's all those routes that I've done so far has been in less than 2 weeks.
Jeez. Wow.
So it's the traffic patterns have changed. There are certain cities that have definitely diminished, but then there are other places that seems to be even more busy with car drivers. And which is creating an issue, and that's why I made the video about staying home and social distancing and everything, right?
Right.
Because what's happening is the people are getting out and getting stir crazy, which I completely understand.
Sure.
I'm getting stir crazy in this what you call big space.
Right.
What I call right now is my prison, right?
It's easy for me to say big space because I'm not living in it for, like you said, 3 months at a time. So, or 3 weeks or whatever it is. I mean, it's not, I can go upstairs. I can, it's, so yeah, I completely understand. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. So what's happening is because people aren't staying home and practicing social distancing, the government and private business owners are starting to have to shut their doors to encourage social distancing and staying at home, because at these locations that our trucks fit with facilities and showers and everything, that also means that all those cars can go there, have a picnic, because a lot of those places have picnic tables for the truck drivers to be able to get out, stretch their legs, eat outside if it's nice and all that.
Sure.
But now they're flat out just shutting them down because car people aren't working. They're getting stir crazy, so they want to go for a picnic. But the problem is that everyone's thinking the same thing. Oh, I'll keep social distancing, but then there's no room for us, and then they shut the facility down.
Yeah.
And then we rely on truck stops and those rest stations, but we also rely on the restaurants industry as well. So, for example, McDonald's, Burger King, all the fast food industry, sure. we definitely rely on. That's an essential to us.
Sure.
Right.
It's food.
I've got a fridge that can only hold a week's worth of food in it.
Wow.
And then I'm out.
Yeah.
And I can't spend, or I can't even get my truck in half these Walmart parking lots anymore because there's lineups right out the door. There's so many cars I can't park my truck in to pick up some more groceries. So I'm relying on these other avenues, but they're being forced to close down also because people aren't following the stay at home and social distancing practices.
Yeah.
So it's completely revolutionized the way we used to truck, the way we used to drive. We used to be able to get a pre-plan, so our next delivery or pickup, and be able to plan our route and plan, I'm going to stop at that rest station or that truck stop or that Walmart parking lot or any of those types of places. And now we can't do that anymore, because the other day, for example, and that's why that video came out, was I tried stopping 3 times to find just a bathroom, and I couldn't find a bathroom. So I was forced to completely change the way I'm used to doing things, right?
Yeah.
And it was freezing rain out. I was angry. I was upset. I was discouraged. And these are the emotions that a lot of us drivers are going through, right? Because it's not even touching on the fact that we're worried about contracting the virus ourselves, because we're going into all these hard hit areas.
Sure.
So that's how it's completely changed and revolutionized this whole industry. It's go, go, go. We can't find parking, so when we feel that we're tired and we want to pull over safely, we can't. And so we got to drive on for an extra hour or two. And it's, again, we are practicing safe practicing. A lot of drivers, including myself, will park on a ramp. We'll park on a side street. These are not ideal conditions for us, because we don't know the areas that we're going into, whether they're safe areas or dangerous. And so those are other considerations we have to keep in mind as well.
Now, you indicated, I know you told me kind of the more detailed and graphic story about what you had to do, and we don't even necessarily go there. But the truth of the matter is, one of the things that prompted your video was the fact that you couldn't find a bathroom, and you had to secure a means by which you could do that if you needed to down the road, further down the road, or actually even that day. And that's what prompted you to have to go buy that toilet, that portable toilet thing.
That's correct.
So what I think it's amazing. It's one of those sacrifices that that people aren't getting. They don't understand. And that's what I think was so good about the video that you released. And hopefully it's something that was seen all over the place, because I think it's so eye-opening. It's one of those little things that you're just like, wow, I don't think, I mean, we still, most of us here that live within a, 5-minute drive, 5-mile drive, even to a city, we still have fast food restaurants that are open, at least during the normal hours that we can plan around. You can't do that because you're driving. And
Yeah.
then by the time you would come across something, it might be closed. And are you noticing that, like, the Walmarts, because I know that over the last several years, Walmart has seemed to, it's pick and choose whether, their lot allows you to stay overnight, and that's become fewer and fewer. I've heard that from several truck drivers. Have they been more open to allowing that given the circumstances?
Like I haven't had to park in. Well, I haven't been able to fit in a Walmart at the time that I need to park,
Good
right?
point.
But I haven't heard from talking with other drivers that they've been kicked off of properties. In fact, it's been quite incredible, to be honest. A lot of private business owners, including the big box chains, have been more accommodating and accepted of the drivers just parking on the lot or anything like that. And you got to remember, there's all over social media, which is great. Hotels are starting to open up their doors for us, but we don't know our areas. We're not familiarized with that town, that
Yeah.
even what's in there. Is there a Walmart? Is there a hotel? Is there any of those things, right? So it's difficult for us to know if we can even utilize that lot or not, because they're shut down, right? The private company's shut down or whatever.
Right.
So we don't know if we're going to be parked on there. Someone's going to come knock on the door and say, take off, please. Or so one of the things that I would personally, it'd be nice to see, because we're not familiarized with the areas, start using signs and things saying that, hey, drivers, you can park here. Businesses closed down. Use our lot,
Right.
right? That way we know that as we're driving by, okay, we can fit in that lot. There's a sign that's stating that we can park here.
Yeah.
We don't want to cause troubles. We don't want to create messes and all that stuff. That's not what we're about, right? We're just here to as fast as we can, as safely as possible, and as healthy as possible, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, I haven't heard anything from any drivers so far.
Okay. Good.
Experiencing that yet.
Good. Well, that's good. I was worried about that because it seems like businesses are kind of more open to things right now. But I do know, obviously, there's a certain financial aspect of it from a business side. Even if they're closed, if they have a small parking lot that's not reinforced enough to to carry heavy loads and things like that. But most of these larger businesses have back docks. They have back property. And if they're able to carry those loads, they should be able to at least carry, accommodate, I would think, a handful of vehicles for that. But so let's hope that continues for you for sure. If in that you're able to find places to at least stop for the night or stop for a few hours to get the rest that you need.
Yeah.
So one of the things in our conversation that I thought, aside from the fact that you're doing a crazy schedule as far as driving goes. Now, you said you are out on the road for how long now again? 3 weeks at a time?
I'm going to be out for 3 months.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Think about that, folks. 3 months at a time. And this part kind of gets me because I know you're a family guy. Most of us are. And even though you're a family guy, you're making a sacrifice that would be difficult for very many people to do by doing so, by staying out for 3 months at a time. And you told me this story about just recently you drove past your house and couldn't go. And tell the listeners a little bit, if you can. This is as real as it gets, folks, as far as the sacrifice that some of our guys and Hallmark here are doing. When you are out for 3 months at a time, there's a specific time frame that you have to, given the fact that we're under this pandemic and the stay at home and everything else, and a quarantine situation in many places. There's a situation where you can't just get home and then walk in the door, hug the family.
No.
Talk to me about that a little bit, because I want our listeners to pay attention to this, and I want our listeners to understand what this is really like for you when eventually you do get home.
So the reason why, so the other day I was driving by my place. I had a load and I had to bring it. I ended up having to go past my house. And so I decided to stop and park on the road. And at least say hi to my wife and my kids. And but the problem is because I cross the borders back and forth. I'm not staying provincially. I'm not staying within the city or anything like that. And I choose to do this. I can't just walk into my house. I don't know if I have the virus. I'm classified as high risk of being a carrier, right? Because I'm going into all these areas, and so is a lot of other drivers. Right. And so when I came to my house, I parked the truck. I stayed on my driveway, and my wife and daughter stayed on the porch. And we just talked for about an hour, and then I had to take off again because I still had to get the load to its final destination. The reason why I've committed to Day and Ross for 3 months at a time is because right now hospitals, grocery stores, and everyone else desperately needs these goods and services, right? It's it's imperative that we get this stuff. And on average, I haul about approximately 42,000 pounds of goods in my trailer. That's about average per day.
Wow.
So if I take that 42,000 pounds and I times it by just 2 weeks, that means that's 588,000 pounds of goods and services that just this truck alone can handle. But now I stay out for 2 weeks and I want to go home, but I have to quarantine for 14 days. So that's 588,000 pounds that won't be making it to its destination if I go in quarantine. So I believe personally that as a Canadian and as a person that goes into the United States and works with the Americans, part of my job is it's a duty to serve our two countries. And to make those sacrifices to make sure, because not only am I providing for Canada and the United States, but I'm providing for my family. I'm teaching them, showing them that we believe in our countries, we believe in our communities, we believe in ourselves, and these are the things that we do. Our veterans have never had to be asked to go and defend our country, and so right now our countries are in a pandemic, at a type of war against a virus. Mm-hmm. And I have a license and a truck, so I have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that both of those things are being utilized to its fullest extent. It was really tough to be able to not be able to walk in my own home.
Yeah.
Because it's my home.
Yeah.
And I couldn't walk into it. But it's still the right thing to do. I know a lot of drivers that are doing this, that are making these sacrifices. It's not easy, but it's also easy at the same time because we know what we're doing. It has such a huge, incredible impact. Because of what we're doing, we're asking everyone else to start doing the same thing. I'm practicing social distancing. I'm by myself in this truck. I don't hang out inside the truck stops. I don't go and start having picnics. I don't go and go home.
Yeah.
And so we're asking you guys that are home to stay home, to practice social distancing, because the sooner that everyone's doing this, the sooner we can get these supplies to the grocery stores, to the hospitals, to the doctors and nurses that are even in a worse pandemic than we are, because they can't get their supplies, right? So with those numbers, 588,000 pounds in 3 months, that would be a little over 3 million pounds of goods and services just this truck alone will be doing.
Right.
So I don't feel that I feel it'd be selfish of me to just go home for 2 weeks, quarantine, and then take another week off. I don't really want to go out yet. So now so a month off all of a sudden every 2 weeks or something, right? Just so I can have quality time.
Sure. I understand that. But what I want to recognize, and I want to give you absolute credit for, but I want everybody to understand this and really think about that for a second. And I know anybody that's been in the military, that's been overseas, is going to say, I understand that that's like, I was there, I was gone for over a year, I was gone for 2 years. I don't, so I understand that there's sacrifices in other jobs and I'm not trying to compare that. But what I am trying to say is in a circumstance where this is not normal for you, this is not the normal thing that your job entails, and this is not what technically what you signed up for when you originally decided you wanted to be a truck driver. And so what you are doing is, and I'm just going to spell it back out for everybody, is that when you go home after 3 months, you go home and you will park your truck in your driveway or your garage, and you will be there at home, but quarantine yourself because of all your travel and to make sure that you're not going to infect your family members. In the off chance that you did get it somewhere, you're going to be quarantining yourself for 14 days away from them, with them only being an arm's reach away or 6 feet away at all times. How difficult that must be to know that that's what things are going to come to for you. So I can't even imagine what that's like, knowing that. So I have the utmost respect for you for that.
Oh, thanks. So what we're going to do is we have an extra bedroom at our house. So we're taking the spare bedroom and putting it inside the garage, the detached garage, so that when I do get home, I'll have the bedroom and then the truck also, or the garage and the truck as my quarantine zone where Becky and Haley will not be able to access. And then 14 days after that, I'll be able to walk back into my house. And
for just 14 days, though. I mean, I mean, it's. I mean, it's just, it's incredible. It really is. And I mean, I can't minimize it in any way. I can't say enough. Here I am. Yeah, I'm self-distancing with the family, and we're checking in on my mother-in-law occasionally, who lives across town. And for the most part, I'm the only person that has left the house to go, get essentials. But it's, I get to see him every day, and I'm I don't know. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for you and what your fellow truck drivers are doing, and in this circumstances especially. So thank you again.
Oh, thanks.
You said that there is you are noticing are you noticing a decrease overall in traffic on the roads since before this? Or are you saying that you've noticed it's been a decrease, but given the fact that everybody's on a stay-at-home order, you're still seeing too many cars, in your opinion?
That's correct. So there has been certain areas have been more decreased, and then other areas, I think, where they're not enforcing. Well, everywhere is enforcing stay at home and social distancing, but certain states versus other states are mandating the stay at home, close down your business. This is how it is. And then there's other provinces and states that haven't got to that point yet.
Okay.
And so there are a mixture of traffic flows right now. But again, there's still a lot of cars out there. Quite a few cars. And what's happening is that there's a lot of trucks out there moving too. And so we need the space and the availability of the lanes. And the biggest thing is we're going into areas that we're not familiar with, and we're delivering truckloads now of goods and services, right? To the desperate locations where there's going to be tighter turns. So we need the people that are going out for essential goods and for grocery shopping to understand that you got to give us a little bit more time, because honking at us and yelling at us and cutting us off, you know what? You're only holding back your own services, your own essentials.
Right.
We need to be able to make those turns, execute those maneuvers without worrying about being with people being impatient and desperate for their services. We're being parked on roadways now also because at these locations, the factories or the manufacturing plants or the end user, they're receiving multiple shipments or they're putting out multiple trucks. So we're lined up out onto the roads, right? We're no longer even fitting in their compounds.
Oh yeah.
So we are blocking areas, unfortunately, but it's because we're trying to get those services essentials out.
Sure. Right.
So we just need the public's understanding that it's not that we're trying to be ignorant or insensitive.
Oh no.
We're focused. That's the thing. It used to be we just cruise along and enjoy. Now we're just driven and we're focused, right?
Yeah. As I told you in our other conversation, I mean, I would willingly drive a squad car for another 20 years. And I loved driving it for 20 years, but you couldn't get me to drive that truck for 10 minutes. At least not anywhere that I've been around, because I would not want to be a truck driver in some of these streets, these narrow cities that have narrow roads. And, you know, it's especially when it's that intersection you've only come up to just that one time. It's your first time there. And then you realize, holy cow, that's a 2-lane road. And they allow people to park cars on that road. And it's also a state highway, and I'm supposed to be driving down that. So yeah, I can't even, no thanks at all, man. So you can have that. I don't want that. So if you can, I know you've given a lot of advice in general, but what, just take it through general real quick. What kind of advice would you say to anybody that's listening, what we can do to make your life easier? Just simply put.
The biggest thing is our essentials. So as drivers, we require certain things now to protect ourselves because we're going out everywhere. So because I don't have access, I've been looking for gloves because I got to protect myself. So I got to ration my supplies now of gloves so I wear the same pair of gloves all day. So I wake up, put a pair of gloves on, and they're on my hands all day until I'm about to go into the back bunk and go to sleep. So I'm washing my hands at the facilities, restrooms and stuff, but we don't have access to sinks and soap, water, and all that, like easily accessible to us.
Right.
So we really do depend on our hand sanitizers. So I'm sanitizing my gloves every time I'm leaving. Like I leave the truck, I go and hand in paperwork I come back into the truck, I'm putting the hand sanitizer on. That's my only option.
Yeah.
For the folks that are practicing social distancing and staying home, leave these for us and your healthcare protection.
Yeah.
You have soap and water. You have access to other options.
Sure.
I don't have those. If I get sick, again, that's 588,000 pounds of goods and services that won't be moving for 2 weeks or longer, however long I'm sick for.
Exactly.
Right. So we need these supplies. The police, our police officers desperately need them. The healthcare doctors and nurses, they're running out. Every time I've gone into a store, they're sold out of gloves, they're sold out of hand sanitizers, they're sold out of toilet paper, they're sold out of everything. And I don't understand why that is. You guys are staying home. If you're practicing that, staying home and social distancing, you shouldn't need the stockpile of it.
It's because people are selfish and panic.
Right. And
it is.
What's
I mean,
going to
that's the hard truth of it, is that people are selfish and they panic. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
And what's going to happen though is our drivers are going to start dropping off one by one.
Yep.
Because if we don't have these sanitizers and these gloves, just the bare minimums to protect ourselves, because we're walking into a public bathroom, right, or going into a building, a customer's building, or things like that, and I use my hand sanitizer multiple times a day.
Right.
Now I can wear my gloves all day, but prefer not to. I prefer to
No,
have.
it's really not good for you too anyway, but I understand the need. But I
Yeah.
can imagine, because I've only, there's been times where, back in the police department, I had to wear them for a few hours at a time. But as soon as they would get to the point where they were, you know, as soon as they get to the point where they were unusable to me, where I'd be just dripping with sweat underneath them, I could take them off, put some new ones back on. That's not something that you can afford yourself to do. So I definitely get that, for sure, for sure. But what else you got back there?
So I got my gloves. I got my wipes. These are very. Oops, sorry. Just lost my camera.
That's all right.
I got my wipes and everything, which I definitely use every time I cross the border.
Okay.
I take a wipe out, put it on my steering wheel, because I again, we need to protect each other. So I have to hand over my what's called a fast card, my ID for the government for crossing the border. I make sure I sanitize it with the wipe, pass it to the officer. The officer scans it and lets me go through, asks me all the questions. He passes it back. I wipe it again.
Okay.
So that's what I use those wipes for. And then I've got my toilet paper. I've got my toilet that I carry with me. Sorry, this thing just dropped. And then I'm going to just switch it over to here. Can you still see me?
Yep.
Okay. And then we have our cases of water. Those are my essentials for the truck now. Those are things that I have to have on me at all times, and I carry with me at all times. So, and then that's about it. That's my new things and masks. There's some places now that are requiring you to wear a mask, or you can't go out in public now without having your face covered. But guess what? I don't have access to masks.
Sure.
Neither do the nurses and doctors and everyone else. And again, if you're practicing social distancing and staying home, you don't need those N95 masks.
No, you don't.
I find it difficult saying that you don't need it. I understand that you have to go out for your essentials. I get that. But the stockpiles that are happening at people's personal homes versus for what we need in the trucks and what the doctors need the balance is not there.
Right.
So I understand everyone has to protect themselves. Everyone has to go out to pick up groceries and everything, but there's also other avenues for that too. Like my wife now, she orders everything online. She orders all her groceries. She drives to the grocery store, waits in her car. They come out with the groceries, put it in her trunk, and then she takes off. She doesn't even go into the building anymore. Those are ways that you can protect yourselves, so then you don't need a stockpile of hand sanitizers and masks and everything, because you don't actually need to be going into these stores either, right?
Right. Right.
So that's about all that I have in my truck for every day when I'm driving. Once I'm done, my day's still not done. I do have one more thing. I got my spray 9.
Oh yeah.
Which kills viruses and everything. So I spent a good 20 to 30 minutes to spray down everything in the truck again, to make sure that everything, because I'm shutting doors. I try to clean it off and everything, but I want to make sure that I'm not having the surfaces have a virus on them or anything like that. So I still have to make sure that I'm taking those additional precautions, where before I would clean the inside of the truck with water or whatever once a week or something.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, man,
now I'm doing it.
I have absolute nothing but respect for you, man. And I really appreciate the video that you put together. I really appreciate the work you're doing, both up in Canada, but also here in the States, because you're traipsing all over the place, man. I appreciate not only the sacrifice that you're making, but appreciate the sacrifice that your family is making, your brothers are making, everybody's making, that they don't get to see you. So everybody that does care about you as being an integral part of their life, that's a sacrifice they're making as well. So I recognize that, and I have nothing but respect for you, man. So any final words that you want to say?
Yeah. Brian, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing. To everybody else out there that's watching, uh, thank you so much for sharing the video. I know that it's gone literally worldwide. I know it's been in Europe, it's been in Mexico, it's been in all over Canada, the United States. It's been everywhere, along with the poster. Because of that, my Instagram's blowing up.
Yeah.
Just people reaching out, and that's been fantastic. I really appreciate the support that everyone's doing. I am so grateful that you guys are practicing social distancing and staying home. And I one more thing is I'm very thankful for the wife I have, because she supported me in making sure that, it's not easy for her to be home by herself, and I'm out here. So she rocks.
All right.
That's
man.
it. That's all I got.
That's great. That's real well put, man. That's great. So man, I thank you again. Be safe out there on the road. And keep me posted just one-to-one on how things are going out there for you. For sure. I'll stay in touch with you. And let's hope that we can get over this real quick and you can get back to your family.
Perfect.
All right, man.
Thanks,
Take care.
Brian.
All right. Stay safe.
Yeah. See you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So that was Ryan, or we couldn't call him Hallmark, from the Bearded Villains Montreal. I just, you could hear my my thanks and my gratitude for the work that those guys are doing, and all the truck drivers that are out there doing that stuff, and everybody really that is out there staying away from their families to provide services that the rest of us need. While I've got a second here in between things, I do want to say, anybody that is leaving comments in the comment box, please. I appreciate all those comments, and I will be getting to those before too long. I will say this: if for some reason you are a person that is making comments that are not beneficial to this podcast, if you're making comments that are directed or derogatory toward anybody, please do yourself a favor and remove yourself. We are a brotherhood of men working to make the world a better place, and we do not need anyone here that is trolling or looking for a reason to try and create some own personal agenda. So I would like for you, if you cannot keep your mouth shut, and if you cannot decide that you just want to follow this for what it is and for the good that we're doing, please remove yourself. Thank you. So, before I'm gonna move on here, guys, and like I said, I do appreciate all the comments, and I'll get back to you guys. I see everybody's raking up a storm there with some of those comments, so I do appreciate it. Just yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, our BV main page posted a video that included a message from several of our captains, and the BV captains, and as well as our president. And it was a really good message, and I think I want to play that for you now. Parts of it are kind of quiet. I tried to raise up the audio the best I could, but it's a little hard to hear it at times. But the podcast being what it is today, I think it's important for us to get to that for sure. So real quick, I'm just going to say real quick also, if for some reason you don't know where the actual podcast recording is going to be, I'll re-say that again. That's going to be at theheartofavillain.simplecast.com. Theheartofavillain.simplecast.com is where you can find this podcast when it gets out there live, and every other one of the 24 other podcasts that are out there. So I'm going to get to this next video here, and then I'm going to be bringing in our next guest after this video plays, but I'll play this now, and hopefully everybody can hear this okay.
One brotherhood, one ship. Stay bearded, stay villain.
This is a BV COVID PSA.
In these uncertain and unprecedented
times, we Bearded Villains.
Bearded Villains captains want to share
with our brothers and their families around the world
a little message of urgency.
As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to impact our lives,
our economies, and any sense of normalcy in our day-to-day life,
we would like all of you to know that as Bearded Villains, we always lead by example.
So much of what we do as villains involves getting together to support our charitable efforts in our
communities, to share a meal with each other, to host events to raise money for good causes,
or by capturing our love of the brotherhood in pictures.
Living through this pandemic makes all of these efforts next to impossible. we as villains understand how important it is that we practice social distancing and self-isolation.
Wash your hands regularly. Sanitize your hands and all surfaces regularly.
If you don't need to leave your house, don't.
If you can work from home, just do it. And if you can help out in your community, then do so safely.
Let's do our part to flatten the curve and beat this thing.
Many of us have been touched by the new realities of the COVID pandemic, and we are dealing with it the best we can.
Some are creating videos. Some are holding virtual meetups so that we can stay in contact with one another.
And as we look ahead to the coming weeks and months, let us remember that what we do now will reflect on the brotherhood later.
Let us continue to support our families, and let's continue to lead by example.
Stay safe, stay loyal, stay villain.
One brotherhood, one ship. Stay bearded, stay villain.
Okay, we are back, and thanks again to all the captains that took some time out, and to Von Knox for making that video for everybody as kind of a PSA, public service announcement on behalf of the Bearded Villains. So again, introduce myself again if you're just chiming in, just joining in. This is BP from Bearded Villains of Indiana, and also the host of The Heart of a Villain if you're listening on a normal podcast platform after the fact. Otherwise, if you're still on YouTube, thanks for staying with us and watching. I'm going to be interviewing next a brother of ours who's actually here in Indiana, doesn't live too far from me. And some of you may know him, some of you may not, and that's okay. His name is Aaron. He's from Bearded Villains of Indiana, and he is a villain. He goes by Dumbledad on Instagram is where you can find him. But Aaron has a unique situation because he has literally a firsthand account of the situation dealing with the coronavirus. So I'm going to bring in Aaron. Aaron, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm feeling a lot better than I was for a while. That's for sure.
Yes, you are. And you sound 10 times better than you did a week ago. That's for sure.
I still do. I got a wicked cough though still, but hey.
Yeah. So for anybody that does not know, Aaron, he didn't really shout it to the rooftops or anything like that. There's just a handful of us, I think, that knew about this. But Aaron contracted coronavirus. How long has it been now?
Oh man, it's been, well, since I've been feeling better, it's been about a week so far.
Okay. So you found out, well, let's just go from the top there. I know that you had you were not feeling well, and it caused you to want to go ahead and get tested, but you actually had the flu, a bad case of the flu actually, just a couple weeks before this actually. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a rough couple of weeks beforehand even.
Yeah. Well, so you had a couple of rough weeks with the flu, and then you started feeling bad again. And then kind of take us through the situation where what led you to go ahead and get yourself checked and everything.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's like I was running a fever on and off for a little bit, and then it started spiking, and then I started getting the hot flash, cold flash, the run around, and I thought, it's like, oh crap, I'm getting the flu again. But it really didn't feel like it. It felt slightly different. So I went in, got to the ER, well, more like the urgent clinic, but so they ran me through the normal stuff. So I ended up having to go back, and they ended up doing a couple of viral tests, like a panel all across the board. And they're like, well, it didn't come back with anything. So they took one final test, and they're like, hey, guess what you got? So they're like, stay home, don't go into work, put yourself in quarantine. And I'm like, the first thing in my head was like, oh crap, I have wife and kids at home. And
yeah.
So it was kind of rough.
Yeah. So when you went in that day and you had your test run, how long was it before? I mean, what did they initially tell you, and then how long was it before they actually came back and told you your results?
It was about a week after the fact. Sorry, that was my wife. Kids don't want to go to bed.
I understand.
It was about a week after the fact, and it was kind of like it wasn't going away. So they issued breathing treatments, issued me antivirals, antibiotics, an inhaler. So I was going and going and going, and finally they called me back actually, and they're like, "Hey, guess what? This is what came back. Don't freak out, but make sure you're staying away from everybody. Make sure you're washing your hands. Don't cough on anybody. You know, the common sense stuff."
Right. Right.
So my wife loved me from afar for for a little bit.
So you did have to socially distance from the. Now, did they kind of tell you this might be what it is after the tests were done, and so you needed to take precautions at that point when you came home to stay away from everybody, or how did that happen?
Well, they kind of told me, look, we're not sure if this is what it is, but if it is, just on the safe side, just stay away from everybody. Make sure you're just kind of keeping your distance from everybody. You know, if you cough or touch anything, wipe it down. So it was kind of one of those things where it was just do what you can.
So you've been doing the 6 feet away from everybody now and even in your own house there for a handful of days then, right?
Yeah, it was a little rough. You know, my kids, they want to come. Hi, Dad, love you. Hug.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Yeah, you've got young kids, and they don't quite understand when Dad says, "No, stay away from me."
No, they don't. I think my daughter was like, she was dying because she couldn't hug Dad.
Yeah, and you're a big teddy bear too, so I can imagine what that's like not to be able to hug.
I mean,
teddy bear. Yeah, no doubt.
Definitely.
So, yeah, man. So what was that like? I mean, for the wife and everything, what was that like for the rest of the family? You had to just kind of stay away. Did you have to stay, seclude yourself to a different part of the house?
For the most part, I just stayed on the other side of the room. Obviously, I made sure I kept my mouth, covered, and but for the most part, it was kind of the similar situation. Just stay away, keep across the floor, room, whatever. If I was sleeping in the same room, I was always facing the opposite end.
Yeah.
So, and I have a CPAP machine, so that kind of kept me in place anyway. So that didn't really, matter too much. So it was kind of a funny situation on that end. But for the most part, I made good with what we did, and we made do with the space we had.
Yeah. Did they give your family any advice specifically on how to just the same thing as you, just kind of stay at least an arm's reach, 6 feet away or whatever, and just
it was pretty much same advice.
Don't touch anything that you've touched recently without wiping it down.
Pretty much. That's honestly about it. They didn't really hardly send me home with any paperwork, but that was before this part of the county started testing, so it was kind of new for them at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So then now that you have what exactly, if you can, what were your symptoms, and how did those symptoms because I mean, not many of us really know someone yet, and those numbers are going to increase, obviously, the more tests that are out there and the more the time that comes in the next few weeks. But can you take us through your circumstance, your actual symptoms, and what was the worst part about it? Because now you're up on the upswing now, and you're getting really well now, hopefully. But the worst part about it for you, and how did those symptoms differ from, at least on your end, how they differed from the common flu?
I mean, for the most part, a lot of the symptoms with the common flu is the same. I think the most difficult part was just the breathing. I have a rough time breathing out of my nose, and just as it is, but when you take somebody who's got seasonal allergies already in full bloom and getting over the flu, and then on top of that, you're adding the breathing issues already back into the mix, it definitely gets challenging. I mean, I couldn't even, have a full conversation with somebody getting winded. My boss called me, "Hey, how you doing?" And I told him, I was like, "Hold on a minute, let me take a breath before I finish my sentence." But I mean, the fever, sometimes you get dizziness. That's another somewhat common one. But it just, instead of the flu where it gets gradual, it hits you like a truck pretty much.
Yeah. So it was it was kind of an overnight situation that you just like all of a sudden said, "This just isn't right."
Yeah. It was one of those things where it's like I was fine, then I was like, sort of, and it's like, oh crap, I'm getting the flu again, and then the next day it was like, yeah, no, this ain't happening.
And you knew that day that this was just different than the flu.
Yeah, it definitely felt a little bit different. It was harder to breathe. I was way more stuffed up than I was before. Stomach, even though they said initially there wasn't symptoms for the stomach, they are now saying there is symptoms for the stomach, and I didn't feel so great. And had a couple episodes where I ended up in the bathroom, but
yeah, oh sure,
it was not a good experience.
Yeah, well, they say, and I'm no expert by any means, but they say that from what I've heard, and this is not from the media, this is actually from the doctors, Fauci and those other ones that are out there talking about it, the professionals, that once you get through it, your body should produce an immunity to it to return aspects of it. Hopefully, that's what they're at least saying right now. So let's hope that's the case.
I'm hoping so. You know, a lot of it's kind of half and half. Some places say you can develop an immunity. Some places say you can get it again, but it might mutate. You never know what to think anymore.
Yeah. So have
Media,
they told
gotta
you?
love it.
Yeah. Have they told you then what to? I know you're on the upswing now, so you're feeling much better. You just have some residual issues, but have they told you like at what point you needed to consider yourself contagious until or up until a certain point, or how did they determine that? How did they tell you about that?
Pretty much they tell you after a couple of days of getting over it, just to kind of keep your distance, and then just make sure you're not around anybody sick for a while, because it'll obviously your immunity is going to be a lot less than it was for a while.
Okay.
But that's honestly about it. Just a couple of days afterwards, I'd say about a week, they told me. So
okay, so it's kind of on an up to you type of a basis. So it's good that you're at least being smart about it, and not saying, hey, I think I'm feeling well. I mean, because feeling better 2 days later is feeling better, but it's not feeling like you should. And so I could see how people would take advantage of that and say, hey, the sun's shining, it's nice out, I need to go to the store. And I was diagnosed with it, but I'm feeling much better now, and it's only been 3 days, and I could see how that could get people into a trick back there.
Oh yeah, and the worst part about it is before I even got sick, it's like I go to work, I come home, I go to work, I come home. You know, I went to the grocery store one day just to get some bread, couldn't find it, so I had to go somewhere else to another grocery store, get bread, couldn't find it. Ended up at a gas station had bread, so I mean, it's like I could have got it either from the grocery stores or the gas station, or who knows.
Right.
You know, it's kind of scary, but at the same time, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And had this not been detected, you would have probably just thought it was the flu again. So just a bad case of the flu.
Exactly.
So
yeah, exactly. You know, and again, for the most part, I stay away from the doctors unless I really have to go. This year has been a lot worse than the sickness.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad that you're feeling a lot better though. It's nice to see you have a voice and not sound like you've just gotten done smoking an entire crate of cigarettes.
You heard firsthand how I was for a little bit. That was a little rough.
That was fun. I use Aaron a lot as a demo for some of my Skype checkouts and my podcast checkdowns for different things to try for some audio testing. So if you're watching on the YouTube channel right now, you'll notice that just like me, Aaron actually has a microphone, which is really nice to have on an interview person. He's got a professional setup for his gaming stuff. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, so I always give him a call because I know if there's going to be a problem, it's going to be in the setup. It's not going to be on his equipment on his end. So, but man, I appreciate it. I really, have they told you anything about follow-up tests? Are any needed, or they just say it should be off on its own before too long?
They said to follow up with your doctor, just make a case afterwards, make sure you're not coughing, whatever. But I have seasonal allergies anyway, so the hacking part is going to be a little rough. But for the most part, just make sure you follow up with the doctor afterwards, make sure everything's good to go, and then should be all set.
Good. Well, man, I'm hoping for you the best. I know we want to be able to hang out again before too long, but we got to wait till all this social distancing and stay at homing and everything else happens. And I definitely don't want to put you and your family in more danger and ask you to come out, even if we're just hanging out in a parking lot or something like that. So I think we need to abide by the orders right now and take advantage of all the social media aspects that we can, just to hang out with people if we can. And I know we've been doing that on some chats at night, so that'll be fun to be able to continue that at least.
Yep. Yeah, no, the social distancing, it sucks, but it's a necessary evil.
Absolutely. Well, Aaron, I'm going to keep you in our thoughts and prayers, man. I appreciate you jumping on. I know it's not something that you really wanted to publicize, and that's I understand that. But when I knew that this was something that you were experiencing firsthand, I did want to reach in and talk to you, and I knew that you'd be where, you know, you'd be totally fine with just talking to us straight out about it. So,
yeah, no, that's fine. I appreciate the time having me, man.
yeah, it helps. It'll help with, you know, in the event that any of our other family members do have it. I think hearing that somebody had it firsthand, an accountability issue does help. But obviously everybody's going to be a little bit different. So,
yeah.
So, but I appreciate you, man, and get well. Stay whatever you need to do socially distant wise to stay away from other people, and just get healthy, get quick.
6 foot stick, man. I'll just poke him away.
There you go. All right, man. Aaron, I appreciate you getting on with me, and be safe, buddy.
Not a problem. You too,
All right,
buddy.
take care.
You too.
All right. So that was Aaron, and such a cool, interesting story. I think he's a really good dude, a homebody as far as that goes, family man. So when I heard that, I was a little bit worried about him and his family when I heard that he had actually tested positive for that. But thankfully, without any other issues with the family or anything like that, he's been able to get through it just fine. So very, very thankful for that. So we will definitely keep Aaron in our thoughts and prayers. And anybody else, we also have another brother that did post, Superman, over there on the east, or on the East Coast, posted, and we're also keeping him in our prayers. Anybody else that has contracted this, or anybody else that has family members that are affected by this, definitely let's keep all those people in our thoughts and prayers, and let's do the smart thing. I'll be honest, guys. When this first came out, I was like everybody else who was saying, you know, this is just like the flu. If you don't normally get the flu, or if it doesn't really affect you that often, don't worry about it. It'll be just fine. But boy, was I wrong. And I'm not one who typically gets sick either, typically, knock on wood. But at the same time, you have to realize that when you realized how it was affecting the elderly, how it was affecting people with compromised immune systems, and how it was affecting people that have anything, have diabetes, like I said, any compromised immune system, or if they're young, very, very young, then they're more at risk. And we all have family members who might be in those circumstances and might fit one of those categories. So we need to be smart. We really do. Yes, it's an inconvenience for some. It's an inconvenience that school has been canceled. It's been, it's an inconvenience that different jobs are being delayed. And I have nothing but good thoughts and prayers for those whose jobs are being put on hold, or they're being temporarily laid off because of this. I know that can't be easy. But at the same time, we need to recognize that the best thing that we can do right now is follow the orders of the not the politicians, not the media. We need to follow the doctor's orders, the ones that are actually coming out, that know what they're talking about, and they're not trying to stir up a frenzy. Those are the people we need to listen to. And what they're telling us is to stay distant, 6 feet apart, and stay clean, obviously, the typical things. So stay with that, please, until those people tell us that it's okay for us to change our lives back to what we consider to be normal. So please keep all that in mind, guys. Okay, normally this would be the time where I would come on here and I would play my little song where I would bring in the calendar of events. But we have no calendar of events. And right now it's kind of a shame because we're missing different things left and right. And I know that there's more important things in the world. Believe me, I understand and I know that there's more important things in the world than us getting together as Bearded Villains to hang out, even if it's for charity and brotherhood issues. But I know there's more important things. But it is a bummer that we've had to cancel and or postpone so many of our different events. I hate to see that because obviously I want to get out there and spread the news and meet everybody. So we've lost a lot of time, a lot of different events that were scheduled for this year. And this year was the 5th anniversary for a lot of different chapters. So let's just keep each other in our thoughts and try to hit up each other on social media the best we can, stay close, and just reach out and see if we can find ways to still be close and still share that brotherhood. See if there's ways that we can help out other people while following what these doctors are telling us that we need to do. So that's my spiel as far as the calendar of events. As far as I know, most everything has been canceled. That goes till, I want to say, the first week or two of June. To my knowledge, we haven't lost anything in July yet, but that could change very quickly. And we all know what's coming up in August, so we won't even mention that right now. So let's just leave it at that. So, guys, I'm going to check in. I've got a few minutes here, and I'm going to check in with some of these comments. I know we've had a ton of comments rambling through there, and I appreciate everybody who's still online checking in with us. No, I'm not going to sing. Those of you who have been asking me to sing, that's later on, not on the podcast today. I apologize for that. Those of you who are here, who are stalwart supporters of the podcast, I really appreciate you guys. You have no idea what it means to know that your support is there and that you're listening to what this guy here in Indiana has to say. I saw a need, and I wanted to share everything that the BV is doing, that the Bearded Villains are doing all over the world. And it means a lot that you guys have decided to follow me, follow the podcast, follow the YouTube channel with everything that we're doing. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead, and I know we have a whole lot going on in the world. I'm going to close this podcast out, this 25th podcast, and I'm just going to say this, guys. Thanks for so much for being with me, and I've said it so many times before, but thanks for being with me. Thanks for staying by your homes. Those of you who have been really good about doing that. This is the 25th podcast that I've put out, and man, we're coming up on 3/4 of a year that I've been doing this, and I'm really excited about the future. I know that the sky's the limit with this thing. So many startup podcasts only last, 5 or 10 episodes. And so the fact that I've been able to, with your help and support, that I've been able to continue this thing on, and I don't even see there's no light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel's not even in sight. We have so much more to talk about, and that's how I'm going to leave it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this puppy out here. You guys know what this song means. So I'll just say that'll wrap up episode 25 of The Heart of a Villain. Please remember that you can still buy shirts, patches, and pins on the podcast site, which is theheartofavillain.simplecast.com. Remember, it's a great way that you can support the best podcast on the air. Special thanks again to Ryan Hallmark from the Bearded Villains of Montreal and to Aaron from the Bearded Villains of Indiana for taking some time out to meet with me, guys. I really appreciate it. And finally, as I always say, and I say it, remember, it's okay not to be okay. If you are suffering, find a brother to talk to. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. So for now, everybody, take care. Enjoy the week ahead. Take care and stay safe.
When Blah, Jelly, and I, we come together, transformers. So when we meet up, handshakes, bruising,